God gave us natural resources. That's our thing. For generations, our people have survived in these swamps. And our gifts were these natural resources, these things that lurk underneath these swamps and in these wetlands. That's our gift. So, we need to be thankful of that gift. At the same time, we must respect Mother Nature, because the world needs the things that we get out of these swamps.
We begin with breaking news tonight, a mandatory evacuation after part of a bayou collapsed. Good evening. An entire community forced from their homes.
It's in Bayou Corne, and tonight experts have an idea of why the ground gave way.
They're being told this is dangerous, get out. And they need to get out. That land, those homes, it's useless now.
Assumption Parish is located 70 miles from New Orleans and 40 miles from Baton Rouge. Assumption Parish is idyllic, rich in its own history and booming economics, thanks to oil, gas, brine, seafood, and most importantly, sugarcane.
Assumption Parish is like one big community. It's divided by bayous and bridges and roadways, but as a whole, Assumption Parish is one big family.
This is a really very peaceful, very loving, generous type personality here.
The bayou that passes here is called Bayou Corne, and the community pretty much is named after it.
Bayou Corne, you know, it's just a beautiful place. The water in the bayou is normally clear and clean. The bayou is lined with beautiful tall cypress trees.
First thing that brought me here was the fishing. The thing that made me move here was the people. It's sort of a retirement community here. So it's very nice and quiet and peaceful.
Life on the bayou. Would utopia be too strong a word? The satisfaction of my life, I spent my entire adult life building my home here. Because I love it here.
When I went to school, they had to make me wear shoes. They punished me for talking French in class. And, you know, it was different. But we didn't know any better, so we thought we were living in high cotton.
In a 5-minute boat ride, I'm in a hunting paradise. It can't be replaced. There's nowhere else on the planet like this.
I was born nearby in Belrose, about 10 miles from Bayou Corne. All my ancestors were of Cajun or Acadian ancestry. There was a pretty substantial business place here called Camp Bayou Corne. where Mama went to play bingo on Sundays. Dad, went to the bar, and there was boiled crawfish and bands and a campground in the back and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So Bayou Corne way back was always a happy place, always a place where people went to have a good time.
We got married in Belrose at the Catholic Church, and we came down across the street. The business was still open, and in the dance halls where we had our reception. When the reception was done, we walked out of the building, went out to the edge of the bayou, got on the camp boat, and well, we spent a week roaming the bayous, and that's where we spent our honeymoon. It was unique to this area. It was fantastic.
It's just a place on a highway that crosses a bayou. Then all the concrete in the world, the great architects and engineers, none of them could create this special place where they were living.
Oh, Mardi Gras, yeah. We used to travel all the time to go to Mardi Gras parades like in Homa. We didn't go to New Orleans, though, because it was too far.
So Brenda came up with the good idea that we should have our own parade.
And we wanted it a little bit more family-oriented, and we called it the Crew of the Bayou Corne Hookers, and as fishing. And we would get together. There was probably 12 of us in the neighborhood, and we would have planning meetings.
We met. We created meetings so that we could just get together,
A planning committee.
drink some beer, talk a little bit
Tell
about the
some
Mardi Gras, get to know one another.
But the planning meetings were just an excuse to party and have some fun.
Everyone had so much fun each year when we had our Mardi Gras parade.
The people on Bayou Corne were like no one I had ever encountered. They had Mardi Gras parades, they had risque costumes, they had wild, wild music going on. Of course, it was slow dancing, and they danced. I could never understand how they had so much energy that they could just continue to dance for hours.
We had the parades for 15 years. That was one of the highlights of our life out there.
Cajuns arrived here during the mid to late 1700s after being expelled by the British from Nova Scotia and Canada. They were forced to leave their homes. Known as Cajuns, they've retained much of their Acadian language and culture, enjoying Cajun music, Cajun food, and speaking Cajun French to this day.
My family came in from Nova Scotia, the Acadian area, and have been living in the near area of Bayou Corne for at least a couple of 100 years.
Probably 6 or 7 generations.
My great-grandfather was there, and to the best of my knowledge, so was my great-great-grandfather.
Recently, they came out with the study that Louisiana has the most native residents of any other state in the Union. There's a reason for that. I think people in South Louisiana feel a stronger connection to the land itself than probably anywhere else in the United States. The people that grew up hunting and fishing and connected to the land, they don't want to leave that.
I always tell people, once you live on the water, you don't want to leave it. It's just something, the serenity of living out here, it's just too good to miss out on.
There's no way you can understand what it's like to leave the bayou after you've lived here. Built-in swimming pool, 9.5 miles long, you can catch supper in it.
Being Cajun to me is, it's deep-rooted. It's a way of life for us.
Cajun people are very resilient. I mean, they've been through floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it, we have it down here. And they always seem to bounce back, no matter what happens.
The swamp is so special, my friend. It's so peaceful. I feel closer to God when I'm in the swamp. It's heaven on earth for me. My name is Adam Morales. I'm one of 15 children. My mom and dad are raised in Pierreport, Louisiana, living off the land. And I only live about 7 miles from Bayou Corne, the sinkhole. We'd say the family rosary every night. The kids, we all knew how to lead the rosary in French. We didn't have no radio, television, water, electricity, nothing like that. They call me the driftwood man because I'm the only one with driftwood like this. And pretty well known as the last moss man left. I get the driftwood, the cypress driftwood, and the Jaffalia swamp. When I get up in the morning and I have a moss order, I get in my boat with my poles. My poles got like a hook at the end, but it's a rod like bent. It's not a real hook. And I put the top of the pole with the hook in the moss up there, and I whittle it around. I catch everything at one place, you know. I've been living here all my life, and I feel like all this is part of me. If they would make me move in the city, that would kill me. Oh, yeah. Being a Cajun for me is so wonderful. Cajun help each other when they need help. And enfin, in Bellevue, I say there un à l'autre. It's strat in Bellevue.
Louisiana is America's second largest producer of natural gas and produces 25% of the nation's petrochemicals, more than $14 billion a year. Brine mining provides jobs both directly and indirectly for thousands of Louisiana families. For decades, Louisiana residents have lived in harmony with the petrochemical industry.
Louisiana is the petrochemical industry. You know, a great majority of this country's energy is provided through the Texas-Louisiana area.
Everybody in the United States is either using something that was manufactured or made from stuff that was manufactured here in South Louisiana.
This pen, this table, the back of this computer find its beginning in some petrochemical field here in South Louisiana.
With the involvement and with the expansion of the petrochemical industry, so has the need for brine. And so the activities and the mining and the aggressive mining on those particular locations have increased over the years to the point we are today.
When you're talking about brining in Louisiana, the only place you can do that is on the salt domes. Texas Brine is a family-owned, privately held company that has roots that extend back to the 1920s. We consider ourselves to be the largest independent producer of brine in the United States.
Texas Brine was merely an operator. Texas Brine is out on this dome producing brine for the people that own it and profit, which is Vulcan and Occidental.
In Louisiana, a little bit of Texas and a little bit of Mississippi, we have a different setup because the bedded salt that you would try to mine in, for the most part, is very, very deep. And you have these salt domes that rise up that they're still too deep to mine down to. But if all you care about is getting the salt out, then what you can reach rather simply is just drilling a pipe down there, pushing fresh water down. It dissolves that salt and pushes that salt water back up, which can then be used and broken down for what you need, whatever purposes you need brine for.
Without the brine production, a lot of the petrochemical industry, a lot of things that they do, they would cease. They would not be able to do.
The petrochemical industry, I mean, it's definitely the employer of this area, the whole industry.
When it first got here, it raised the standard of living in this area phenomenally.
It supplies many, many jobs, and it's good paying jobs, and supports a lot of families in this area.
Whatever petrochemical companies are poking holes in the earth, hopefully this incident makes those processes in the future safer.
What is the cost to those of us that were born and raised here? The concern is, who regulates the industry?
We have heard the criticisms of the industry regulates itself. That is not the way it works now. It sounds good. It's good to try to rally the troops for a cause, but you just don't see that happening. You don't see the kind of things you saw in the 60s and 70s. And it's not self-regulation by any means.
I think people in South Louisiana are not naive, and we're not Pollyanna-ish in the sense that we're saying no drilling ever again, no petrochemical industry. We understand we need energy. We understand that there's a high demand. We understand there's money to be made. There's nothing wrong with that. But in light of the amount of money being made in the petrochemical industry, we hope that the people in that industry can do what they need to do in a safe manner, and they don't cut corners to make an extra dollar. Instead, they're spending more money on doing their processes safely and to ensure that communities don't get harmed and so that people don't get harmed.
Back on May 30th, I observed something near the pipeline crossing that I had never really seen before. And that was some pretty steady, consistent bubbling. In fact, I passed it by, I turned the boat around, I said, no, this is not right. The bubbling wasn't right on top where the pipe would appear to be, but that's when the investigation started.
Several months before the sinkhole occurred, bubbling was reported to us on May 30th. That bubbling, we investigated to see if it was natural gas or swamp gas. If the gas has ethane within it, that means it's natural gas and not swamp gas. This simple field test did show that there was ethane within the gas, and we were dealing with natural gas.
So we began investigating the bubble sites, as we refer to them, in May of 2012, which was about 3 months before the actual sinkhole formed.
The tremors started and the bubbles were first noticed in late May, early June.
We received a call on June 8th from a resident here in the Bayou Corne community that they felt an earthquake. I've been an emergency manager for quite some time. This was the first call I ever received about earthquakes and seismic activity, so it was very confusing what to do about it.
Well, we had reports from our own operations people. In fact, our plant manager contacted us and described feeling tremors. He offices in a trailer, and he went so far as to describe that it felt like someone had backed into his trailer.
I mean, I remember I was downstairs one day, and I was laying in my recliner, and all of a sudden, I felt it shake.
The dinnerware stuff on top of the china cabinet started shaking. I said, uh-oh.
This is not normal, not South Louisiana.
We didn't know what was happening. We knew that we had Cavern 3. We knew that it had been plugged, but we didn't connect that. It wasn't really until the USGS came out and placed seismographs in the ground and began to locate a concentration of these tremors out on the west side that we really started to get suspicious about Cavern 3.
I think Mark Cartwright was trying to do the right thing, but his hands were tied. I think he was, I think some of those guys initially were in denial. I don't think they thought their cavern failed. In fact, I was sitting there with Commissioner Scott Angel, and my radar went off when Scott Angel mentioned to Mark, hey, you remember we had a problem with this cavern before a few years back. And then everybody started kind of putting their guard up. And that's when I said, I think more is coming to the surface now that hasn't been told yet.
Well, we did what we thought was right, and DNR concurred. And I'm not trying to lay blame at anybody. This was all done based on information available in 1982. And we successfully mined brine out of that cavern for 28 years. Never an incident. And we closed that mine, officially we closed it in June of 2011, and this event took place 14 months later.
When the test of the Texas Bronze Oxy-Gajma 3 failed mechanical integrity, we knew that was a problem as far as operating that well and being able to ensure that whatever was put into that cavern would stay in that cavern. And that was an issue as far as operating it. But there was no indication of a structural integrity problem in that the cavern would not be able to hold shape or the weight of the sediment around it.
DNR and the company didn't move forward with determining why it was leaking, why it didn't have mechanical integrity. And that was very critical at that time. And that's when they first started divulging what they knew about the issues associated with the Oxy 3 cavern.
We took measures to minimize the amount of mining that was taking place down deep. What really changed from when the well was installed in 1982 until the modern interpretation is that we learned of an overhang. And an overhang is basically, in salt dome language, it's a feature where the salt extends out and then drapes back in toward the interior of the dome. The original interpretation in the early 1980s when the well was installed was that it was a sort of a gentle slope that extended out to the west, and that a well placed here would have sufficient space to mine.
They knew what was happening, but they wouldn't tell us. If they'd have been upfront with us from the start, I probably wouldn't feel quite as bad towards them as I do. They're drilling right under our feet, mining this salt cavern right under our feet and not telling us, That's what's aggravating, is that they try to keep you in the dark.
I received a call from dispatch that morning, early on August 3rd, and it was a resident that had called in about a smell.
On a hot, humid summer day in South Louisiana, and the heat's on, and there's not a lot of airflow, when that burp happens, that oil and gas smell is around for several hours, especially early morning and night.
We knew there was something wrong. That smell was not normal. Nobody knew where it was coming from. And then, of course, by that time, we knew a sinkhole had developed and had no idea what was going on.
On my way to work, I didn't notice anything special about anything. And about 7:30 that morning, I got a call from my wife, Mona, called me and said that something was wrong, that she had smelled diesel smell.
I smelled something, it was just horrific.
It smelled just like diesel in my house. I got dressed, got ready for work, and I walked outside. When I opened the door, it was overwhelming. It was like almost choking.
That was a very uncomfortable thing, and and they said the air quality was okay. I just, I find a hard time believing that. It's not, to me, it's not clean air. It may not be reached a certain level of, concerned exposure. There's nothing healthy about it. Nothing.
I wasn't really scared until I smelt the hydrocarbons and this actual sinkhole happened. Then I knew we were in trouble.
Crude oil flowed to the surface and floated on the surface of the sinkhole, as well as huge quantities of natural gas came bubbling to the surface of the sinkhole, as well as continued in the bayous and under the homes and in the yards of the homes. As a result of particularly the crude, the people in the area were made very sick with acute impacts, headache, nausea, respiratory problems.
That's when I received a call from Texas Brian to say, you need to come over here. And I then drove over. I was there in a couple of minutes, and they brought me out to pad 3 and first viewing of the sinkhole. And yeah, quite amazing. Never seen anything like it. Basically, the cypress trees turned upside down, roots sticking up.
We shouldn't know anything that could adversely affect any condition that could, affect the safety of the residents. And we want to know, and we should know, and we didn't know.
It was all hands on deck, all resources needed. Whatever was needed to be applied to this response. It unfortunately is not a quick process. It has taken a lot of time, but that commitment is still there to whatever sense of normalcy can be restored. We're still committed to doing that, and also throughout to ensure that the public remains safe.
One of the scariest things I remember is hearing the National Guard Black Hawk helicopters flying around the hole at night with night vision to make sure that while we were sleeping, the hole wasn't growing and moving towards our houses.
What caused the sinkhole is the cavern was too close to the outer edge of salt, and there was a breach or something occurred at the sidewall of Oxy Cavern 3.
They moving, John.
Yep, I got it.
Going all in.
All the debris at the outside of the salt dome started filling in that cavern space and caused the sinkhole to occur.
Let's make my cell phone, for lack of a better prop, the salt dome, okay? And my fist is gonna be the reservoir of oil, okay? Several hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds of pressure. When you suck out the oil and gas and don't replace it, what happens? Movement. And when you have an otherwise potentially fragile cavern and you pull off the support, you have this unprecedented sidewall breach at 5,000 feet below the surface.
The difficulty we have in determining root cause of Texas Brine's Oxy Cavern 3 cavern's failure is that a lot of the evidence was probably destroyed when the failure happened. We're talking 3,000 to 5,000 feet down through solid rock.
From a common sense perspective, think of it as a three-legged stool. If I pull one of the legs off, do you fall? That's what happened here.
Wow, this is scary stuff. We got a huge issue here.
The first time I heard anything about the sinkhole was it was through the communities. Somebody said, "Hey, there's a sinkhole, and there's a meeting at the boat landing this afternoon, and they're going to talk about it and tell us what happened." And that's when Marty Trish, the parish president, and John Boudreaux took time to explain to us what had happened,
where it was located, and then told us that there was going to be a mandatory evacuation.
The definition for a mandatory evacuation is there's an imminent danger that's present that could harm someone, and that advice is being given, heeding them to evacuate. And if they choose not to evacuate, they understand that the public services and response may not be able to respond to them.
Once the incident occurred, from our Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, we were concerned about the safety of the residents, and that's why we immediately called for the evacuation.
Sitting here today, we can all look back, all of us look back, and see that there were really no dangers presented by the gases, correct? There were no explosions, no fires. But going back now 3.5 years, approximately, almost 4 years, the parish officials, the state, I'm sure did what they were thought best under the circumstances.
I think it was emotional for all of us, because sitting there as sheriff, and I guess I get a little emotional thinking about it, I saw a lot of scared folks. They literally did not know what was going to happen next. I did not know what was going to happen next.
When they said mandatory evacuation, you know, everybody's jaw just dropped, you know, and it was like, you know, you mean that we really have to leave? Everybody's got to run home now and go pack and leave, and there's no idea when you're coming back.
People were leaving their stuff in trailers, belongings on the side of the road, their windows and doors boarded up. It was like the death of a community.
Everybody was scared. Everybody was worried. Nobody knew what was going to happen next.
Even when you hear mandatory evacuation, you know, you think, I shouldn't be here. It's mandatory.
Where in the world are you going to go?
I asked the question when this thing first happened, how long can they keep you in a mandatory evacuation? Nobody could answer it. There was no laws, there was nothing that governed it.
That was supposed to have lasted 6 weeks, I think, was the initial estimate. Today, we are at 799 days out of the house. They missed it by that much. I dare anybody to just pick up and leave their home for 799 days.
Just imagine your entire neighborhood has just erupted. You got to leave. Mandatory evacuation. You know, where are we going? Where are we going to move to? Who's going to pay our bills? What's going to happen to my house?
We came from a normal-sized house to a one-room building. We stayed in that metal building, that one-room building, for 11 months.
You know, we didn't know if we were going to lose control of our constituents. You know, because there were a lot of upset people. They're upset at Marty, upset at me, upset at their police bureau. They wanted answers. And we could not give them all those answers because we didn't know.
There are two sets of people that are still living there. There are those that think they have to be there to protect their investment, and that if they move out, their whole property will be just damaged or destroyed. And then there are others that say, I moved here because of the community, and I don't feel that Texas Brine should be driving me out.
We went to a wedding, we attended a wedding. At the wedding, we got a call saying that we were being placed under a mandatory evacuation. So we left the wedding. We didn't even go to the reception. As soon as the wedding was over, we left, we came home, we packed clothes, we packed our medicine, clothes, and some important papers. So our biggest thing was where we're going to go, you know. We didn't have any place to go.
And that's a pretty awful feeling, a pit of your stomach kind of feeling, the hurt that no one understands unless they know and see those people every day.
We never evacuated from the community. We thought there was possibly the possibility of it. But it wasn't too long after that we sort of, decided we're going to stick it out until sinkhole starts moving closer to us, and we feel I'm in danger. I'll leave.
Going back to the house was entered my mind, but with gas coming up in your yard and, stuff like that, you got to stop and think. And since then, I've had several medical issues, and it's just not a good place to be. There's just too much stuff floating around in the air, and it's just, I don't care to be there. You say you gotta move, where are you gonna put all the stuff you gotta move? It is just, I still don't know exactly where I'm gonna go.
It was very concerning. It was certainly worrisome, and there were some scary days and scary nights, but we decided to tolerate the risk and decided to stay.
It's my home. It's the place that I feel most comfortable with. It's the place that gives me the most opportunity to be myself, to be happy. And I wanted to protect that.
The people that stayed behind, I have no problem with that. They want to stay there, that's fine. But I'm not going to live in a house where I have to have monitors in my house to let me know something's wrong. A home is a place where you're supposed to be safe and secure. We had lost that. We didn't feel either one anymore.
With Katrina, I lost the home I grew up in, the home my daddy had built 50 years prior to that. In losing something like that, I was not ready to lose another home. We are staying because this is my home. The sinkhole is still an active situation. You keep it in the back of your mind. It's always there. It will always be there. But you don't let it control your life.
The north side of the highway and us, it was like, at times it got to be like the Hatfield and McCoys, and it shouldn't have been. And we kept telling them, stop. That's what Texas Brown's wanting us to do, to argue among ourselves and to break us up. And it continued until the day they moved. It was really sad.
I could never be at peace there. It was a choice I had to make. It was a tough one. I could never live there.
Bayou Corne was a great place to live. It'll never be the same again. I don't know if they'll ever stop all the bubbling. And if they do, they're gonna have all these vent wells and all this stuff, and it's just not gonna be the same. Much as I hate to lose the place, I got enough sense to know when to get the hell out.
It's kind of like a death, but this death really didn't die. It's the monster still out there, you know?
It's sad days on Bayou Corne. Number one, because so many people are leaving. Then when I think about the possibility of seeing some of these beautiful homes that have been built here being torn down, it's a crying shame.
This property we're sitting on was my sister's property. And I knew there was a lot of cats in the area that I saw every time I came over here. And when I pulled up in my truck, cats just started coming out of everywhere. My name is Talisa Donna Preacher. I have been coming to Bayou Corne for most of my life, and I have just always loved it, and I knew one day that I would live here. And I've really grown to love these cats. I could tell they were hungry. I mean, they were meowing, they were wanting to come closer. After I fed them, I rode down the road, just looking at that point, and I started seeing cats everywhere. And at one house, there was 22 cats. I think it was a total of about 75 cats when I first started feeding them. So I made up my mind that I was gonna try to keep them fed and safe. So I started buying food and coming over here and putting it down at 6 or 7 different spots. And I talked with Texas Brine about helping me get them neutered to at least control the population. And Texas Brine did make a donation. We hired a trap group, and they came in and trapped. So we finally got to the point where I am at 38 cats now, and only one is not neutered, a male, that I have just not been able to catch. I would say about 15 of these cats will be able to be socialized enough to go into homes as pets. The rest of them will go to borns and forums, and they'll be working cats. I'm totally against anyone feeding stray cats, wild cats, feral cats, and not getting them fixed, because you're not helping the overpopulation of cats whatsoever by doing that. The cats are victims of this disaster, just like people are. Anytime there's a disaster, and the animals suffer too, and there needs to be somebody to step up for them. And if that had to be me, then it had to be me.
I got involved with Bayou Corne almost a year after maybe 10 months after the evacuation actually happened. I think the impact of even organizing a one-year event was an event we talked about in the support group that we really had to push with the parish, because people were evacuated because of a danger. So there's a certain amount of danger bringing people back and collecting them in a group. But the people that came were willing to take that risk because this was their home, and there still was no resolution in terms of legal actions or actions that the state was going to take to hold the companies accountable.
Let's give notice. You will fix this or go to jail.
Everyone was suffering some sort of psychological distress, damage, impact.
We actually formed a group that we met with all Bayou Corne people, that we met in a library in Pierreport once a week, because we had no other support. We had nothing else but ourselves.
So if Texas Brine would have come in and said, we will reimburse you for your mental health costs, I think that would have been a great gesture, but I think that would have helped some of the citizens and some of the impacted people.
And one of the messages that I've tried to maintain for folks out here, and it's not been easy, is that these are transient effects of an industrial accident. This will pass.
You can be strong, but you also you need support. And professional mental support would have been very beneficial for many of us.
Our objective is to get things done and get out of here as quickly as we can. That's the stress relief we're trying to provide. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone as swiftly as we'd have liked.
I've heard so much, I don't know who to believe. I've heard that You know, Texas Brine says this will be resolved in short order. The state experts and other scientists will say this will take 3 to 5 to up to 10 years. I don't know the answer. We can't predict the future. It is uncertain. The uncertainty of the situation adds to the mental distress.
How did Texas Brine do? I think they failed the PR test from day one.
0 PR. Nobody out in the community to walk and talk to people.
They could improve on a lot of things, but their public relations is number one.
I'm of the opinion that anybody from the community could have gone to the command center at Bayou Corne. They could have gone to Texas Brine and asked whatever questions they wanted, and I think they would have left with the answers. A lot of people failed to communicate. They failed to ask the questions. A lot of people, I was surprised, never went to the command center and asked questions, and that door was always open.
But I think it goes back to the virtues of the Texas Brine Company and the Texas Brine people. We understand and respect people had to move out of their homes. And look, there's nothing more American, right, than having a house and having your own home and your own yard. So whether or not we were responsible for it, we were the only ones willing to step up. We took care of those people.
Texas Brine's preparation planning for such of event, they never planned for anything.
And because it's unprecedented, there's no blueprint for a regulatory agency, for a parish, for an operating company to respond. And so we've had to be very flexible. We've had to work closely with DNR and with the parish to coordinate our response activities to be consistent with community objectives, state objectives, and of course our own objectives.
I don't think Texas Brine intentionally to do anything harmful to us or anything in the area. I just think they made some bad business decisions that caught up with them. And I just think that we're the victims of what happened.
I believe that Texas Brine has made a fair effort to try to get it in front of this and to try to mitigate the damage and to try to restore the area and the community. It's an overwhelming situation. It's unprecedented, as we know.
Texas Brine gave us a weekly supplement of $8.75, which helped people find a place to rent. You know, not everybody could have found a place and had everything they needed. You had young people who were just getting established, as well as older people who are on fixed incomes.
I give them that $875 check that they always talking about, and I say, here you go, how about evacuating? We don't need you over here. You've been a very selfish member of the community.
By and large, they've complied with the orders that have been issued by DNR, Louisiana Department of Natural Resources. They've rebuilt the berm around the sinkhole in some places. They've spent a ton of money putting in vent wells to get rid of the gas, and I think have been overall, pretty fair with people.
They were not up front with us. They didn't keep us informed. It was mishandled from the start by Texas Brine.
I could say I've had a fairly decent relationship with Texas Brine. I've never gotten ugly with them. They've been polite to us, but at times they hadn't been truthful with it, especially at the very beginning.
But this is so typical of the way corporations operate. The heads of the corporations don't come down to the level of the community that's being impacted.
Texas Brine, I can assure you, has been committed from the get-go to remediate, to doing what they can to remediate this situation. This is not something they've taken casually. They've been concerned about the citizens. They've done everything that's been asked of them and more.
Up until this happened, hardly anybody knew anything at all about Texas Brine. And now that this happened, we all know everything about Texas Brine.
Texas Brine has been required to put in a berm around the sinkhole. And on a number of occasions, that berm has washed out, collapsed, sunk, and cracked. So there is the situation where the brine on the sinkhole can get into the surrounding environment. When you look at the cypress trees within the berm, you can clearly see that they've been damaged, particularly by the brine.
Do we have a concern that down the road we'll have, berm, I guess containment problem? Yes. I don't think we're going to be, this thing's over. I think it's going to be a subsidence problem for a long time, that it'll be a constant battle out there for a long time, for years to come.
There was plans that were developed by Texas Brine and their contractors if there was ever a breach from the containment and would impact Bayou Corne, that they would have to then rebuild some type of containment and then develop a way to reroute Bayou Corne.
The day the sinkhole appeared, the first thing we did was to deploy absorbent and containment boom around the obvious sinkhole area. We didn't want any contaminants to escape into the surrounding swampland. And we've been successful in that regard. There haven't been no contaminants that have been recorded, not by us, but by the Department of Environmental Quality, who regularly checks that.
So the contamination has the potential to flow into Bayou Corne and Grand Bayou and down into Lake Verret. And the way the berm has had problems being maintained, there's that very great potential. And once you contaminate that kind of area, it has the potential of destroying a lot more acreage than what is being destroyed right now.
The case with us would happen, the cavern actually failed an integrity test a year before the sinkhole happened. I mean, it was well documented that it failed a test. And what did they do? They didn't. All they did was came in and plugged it and abandoned it, hoping that it would go away. And a year later, the sinkhole actually formed, and it didn't go away. The state agencies need to make sure they're following correct procedures on all this stuff.
Your number one path forward is prevention. What do we have to do to assure this doesn't happen again? Because if it were to happen again, we're way ahead of the game as to how to address it, but the cat's out of the bag at that point.
This was new science, and that's why it's so important to document this event, what happened, so that other agencies, other states, other sheriffs, other parish governments or county governments can understand how to respond and deal with an event like this.
Get to know the people. Go around the neighborhood. Bring them to your facility. Have a jambalaya, have a meal, sit down, say grace together. And then whenever some tragedy happens like this, you will take it personal that I have a friend who's being affected by this.
Full disclosure, I guess, could be the policy where people know before they move into a community, what is nearby. I mean, these are things that are very clear to everybody now.
If you need to send somebody to the grocery store, old folks can't move, do that. Do the little things. Those things don't cost a whole lot.
Don't build this mistrust, and that's what happened here. There's an immediate mistrust that was built between Texas Brine, its insurers, and that community.
Show concern and apologize. We never got an apology from BP. We never got an apology from Texas Brine. We never got an apology from OxyChem. We never got an apology from Exxon for creating Devil's Swamp. We never got an apology from Georgia Pacific for using 44 million gallons of water a day. We never get an apology. We didn't get an apology from South African Oil and the other companies that destroyed the water in Morrisville. Never get an apology. Apologize, take care of the people.
Challenge your leaders, your community leaders, your parish leaders, your state leaders, and don't ever give up.
There's no amount of money that they could give us to make us feel like we were fairly treated, because we never wanted to leave in the first place.
Can you imagine starting over at our age? I already built a house. Almost killed myself doing it.
I'm tired, and I'm ready to go. But being tired and ready to go doesn't mean that I'm going to settle for anything. You know, I want what's fair, and I want what I'm entitled to. And then I'm ready to go and start a new chapter.
Without our faith, then to me, where's your hope? And without hope, then you fall into the darkness of despair. So to me, the thing that gave us the spark to move forward was my faith.
I'll remember the good stuff about Bayou Corne, the people, the friends, but as far as the place, yeah, I miss the place, but I mean, it's not a good place to be. So, you know, you just have to move on.
You see it now as a ghost town. You know, besides a few, all the residents are now gone. The homes are vacated, the power is off on all the homes, and you just drive through the community, and definitely the definition of a ghost town is projected here.
It's really disheartening to walk through the community in the morning and the evening, and the main thing I miss, there's no children. You don't hear them playing, you don't hear them playing ball, laughing. They don't come by my home to see my dogs.
It's very lonely. It's an empty feeling back here, and I stayed, and I never thought I would question whether I did the right thing or not, because, you know, I do love it, and I don't want to leave, but I also don't want to live in isolation either. I'm hoping one day that they will let people come back and live here, and it will be a community again.
It's very scary to know something that you've worked for in your heart has value, but in the financial world has none.
There are no winners in this situation. The state doesn't win, the environment doesn't win, and the residents don't win.
I know that there's been a few people that have passed away, and you kind of wonder in your mind, did this event speed that process up? You know, it kind of breaks my heart when I hear that. You know, some of the elderly folks had gotten sick right after, and to this day are not here.
My name's Terry Morgan, and my mom and dad lived in Bayou Corne for 28 years, Mr. Clarence and Miss Susie. During the evacuation period, Mom and Daddy were 83, and you think of them as young, and Daddy was still building on the camp.
Clarence was a drafts person by trade, a perfectionist in every which way. He had a knack for woodworking, which he loved, and so we decided to build the house with the plans that he drew, and built it nail by nail, board by board, from beginning to end. Us having to leave Bayou Corne did damage to us, because it was just like beginning over again. It was on our mind all the time, and we were both depressed, along with the fact that Clarence was ill, but it never left our mind.
it's hard to talk about it because of what it means, or what it didn't mean, or what we are losing. Having lost a close friend, it's just, it's shown me how precious life is. You can't take it for granted. You know, there were things that I wanted to show them that I can't. There were things that I wanted to do with them that I'll never do again. But
I guess I have not yet accepted it, that part of our life that was so important to us was taken away.
When you own your own home and you lose it through no fault of your own, then you start thinking, well, you know, you're trying to set roots down somewheres again, and until this is all settled out, you can't move, you can't do anything, and that's the toughest part about it.
I feel that sometimes you don't understand why things happen, but God had a plan for us, and it was to start fresh someplace else.
The inspiration to me was the people in Bayou Corne. They cared for one another, and like a family, they tussled with one another. There were those that were wooed by Texas Brine, and there were those that have become totally disgusted.
It's been a struggle, and I understand it's been a struggle. And certainly we've made mistakes. We've done things that were not as efficient as they could have been. And I guess I would like to express at least some gratitude for those within the community that have been respectful of the fact that it is unprecedented, and we didn't have a template or a blueprint to respond by. And I would hope, as I said before, I would hope that when we have this behind us, a good portion of them, maybe even a majority of them, will look back and think that, you know, it was a hard time, but we got through it, and I think Texas Brine did the right thing.
A home is a place where you think you're always safe. You think nothing's never going to happen to you. And that's not necessarily true. We found that out. I thought we were safe there for the last 30 years. And all of a sudden, I realized your life can change that quick. Your situation can change that quick. And it makes me appreciate more what I had. And so don't ever think that this will never happen to you, because it could.
I'm just so tired of the situation, want it to be over, and not to even think about Sinkhole ever again.
People sometimes ask, where can you go from here by boat? And I tell them, anywhere in the world. They look at me like I'm crazy. I say, yes, go to Grand Bayou, hit Lake Verret, hit Lake Palourde, head to the Gulf, and the world is at your doorstep. And that truly is the beauty of Bayou Corne.
May decide to buy me a houseboat. That way, if I don't like my neighbors, I can cut the rope and drift on down the bayou.
The people of Bayou Corne are resilient. They possess strength, spirit, and hope. Their lives are forever changed, whether they left or stayed. Within a blink of an eye, any community can be affected by a catastrophe, either man-made or natural. It could be from an oil spill, hurricane, fracking accident, flood, or in the case of Bayou Corne, a sinkhole.
I enjoyed your company, and I hope you'll come back soon. And next time y'all come, I hope I sleep better the night before.
Je vois la rue en des statues quand je restais sur la rue de hier. Sur la rue de hier, je vois mon père travailler dans la mousse en arrière. Sur la rue de hier, je vois
sur la barrière.